Hey yo there, what do you say? Sandgazer here. And today I just want to talk about a simple fact that I don't think gets enough emphasis. Making games is really, really, really hard. Now, when you sort of think about like all the skills necessary to be a game developer, um, it's kind of incredible. So, one obviously is programming, right? You need to be able to have some sort of proficiency with learning a language, learning how to code, learning how to make something, right? So another one would be sort of artist and sort of like drawing, that sort of thing. You have to have some sort of familiarity there. Um, Another is obviously sort of graphic design, sort of looking at a sort of how everything sort of weaves together, how everything sort of makes sense, trying to sort of weave these sort of like disparate parts together and trying to make some sort of like a holistic whole. Um, and when you sort of think about all these things, you sort of realize that making a game is probably it's probably not an exaggeration to say it's probably one of the most difficult things you can do, really. Um, and I think I should probably specify making a good game is very, very difficult to do. I think it's very, very easy to make a game that only you would like. I think that's the general sort of thing you have to sort of keep in mind whenever you're sort of developing a game, in that it's extremely easy to make a game that 2 or 5 or 10 people will enjoy, right? Because all you need to do is sort of appeal to those people's 10 interests and then just sort of like make some amalgamation of there, maybe make a compromise here, compromise there, and then you're able to make a game that a lot of people a lot of those people would be able to enjoy. However, sort of making a game that sort of appeals to a wide variety of people, say more than 100, that's going to be very tricky. More than 1,000, very, very difficult. More than 10,000, at that point in time, you basically have to have like some experience making games, right? It's that the sort of unfortunate thing that I've sort of realized is that there's no real sort of practice um, tests, so to speak, right? You just have to sort of go for it. You have to just start making games, right? As many as you can, as quickly as you can, and just don't ever stop. That's the thing I've sort of realized when it comes to sort of game development and getting better at it. Because I have been trying to make games for a while now, and what'll end up happening is initially I'll have some idea. In fact, the problem isn't that I don't have a lack of ideas, right? Is the problem is that there's so many. So I'll have like these huge panoply of ideas that I want to sort of implement and try out, and I'll be thinking, oh well, what if I have like a sort of a shooter that isn't a shooter, so to speak, right? Or what if I'll have like a sort of it's a platformer that uses vectors instead of just traditional arrow keys. So you basically have to get from one place to another using like vector coordinates and that sort of thing. Or I'll sort of think of like a I don't know like a calculus game and mix that with geometry dash and get some sort of weird combination there in between. And the problem isn't that I have like a lack of ideas. The problem is sort of realizing that I just spread myself too thin. Just sort of realizing that I need to just sort of focus in on maybe a couple of goals at any given point in time has probably been the single biggest revelation to me in terms of my productivity. So, for example, today I did something that I have been wanting to do for a really long time now, namely doing 4 hours of revision. Now, this is something I've been wanting to do since last year, but I've only done now, and I think the main reason as to why I did that is because I looked at my morning schedule, I adhered to it, I followed it, and even though there were some deviations, I still managed to get back on track because realizing that the day isn't over until it's over, right? And realizing that as long as you're aware of the fact that you need to improve and acknowledge that, I think that's going to be sufficient to just sort of say, okay, um, I know that I need to improve, I know that I need to change, and if I know these things, then I will, right? But getting back to the central topic, making games is really, really hard. And all this to say that I didn't realize how hard it would be to make a game. And also, this ties into the thing that I really, really want to talk about is that it's really hard being a game dev YouTuber. When you sort of see like videos and they're super polished, they're super clean, the editing style is really well done, and so Danny would probably be the best example of this, right? He makes YouTube videos that even someone who doesn't do any sort of game dev could still appreciate, right? He makes videos that anyone could enjoy theoretically. Like your grandma could watch Danny and still have like a good time, and that's a very, very difficult thing to do because he makes them quick pace, he makes them focused, he makes them streamlined, and the way he does it is just brilliant, right? He does it by the fact that he just focuses on the parts that are visually appealing, the parts that people want to see, and he also has this sort of engaging, sort of charismatic personality to go along with it, right? Because the thing is that when you're sort of a YouTuber, people aren't just watching you just for your content, right? They're also watching you for you to a certain extent, right? There's some audiences that will follow someone around just in virtue of the fact that they're that person, right? And there's some audiences that only watch them for that particular content. Now, for me, I think that I've sort of realized that if I really do want to be a YouTuber, if I really do want to be the sort of person who at one point in time is able to make a living off of this full time, right? Then I need to start taking this more seriously. So in that sort of vein, I am going to take it more seriously. I am going to make a challenge. I am going to start publishing videos, I think 3 times a week. I think that's something I really want to do. So I think it's probably going to be Wednesdays, Sundays, and probably not this Friday provisionally, but probably Saturday. But I think starting from next week, it'll probably end up, the routine will probably end up being something like Wednesdays, Fridays, and then Sundays. That's probably going to be the routine. Because if I really want to start treating this seriously, if I really want to start treating this like a job, then 3 times a week is the bare minimum. And I think I want to start streaming at some point in time as well. I don't think I want to start streaming until I have 100 viewers. Or maybe just 10. I'm not really sure, to be honest. But I know that I want to be a streamer. I know that that sort of thing appeals to me. I think I'm pretty good at talking on my feet. And I think it'd be like a useful sort of skill to have. And I want to start editing. I think what I'll do is I'm going to write it out on a sticky note, because I've been reading this book called The Slight Edge, and it states that if you have a goal, the best way to sort of, well, the first step anyway, is to sort of write it down. So the first step is, I think when it comes to these YouTube videos, is get better at editing content. The second step is animation. The third step is, say, music implementation. Fourth step is probably just sort of research on how to be like a better YouTuber. And the fifth step is making games. So I think obviously number 1 is to make games, and then it would probably be editing, animation, music implementation, and research. So yeah, I think that these are 5 goals that I'm going to sort of adhere to, and these are 5 goals that I promise myself that I will adhere to. I promise that I will be making games regularly, right? Not just sporadically, not just on and off, not just here and there, right? I will be making them regularly, right? I promise myself that I will be editing regularly. I promise myself that I will be animating regularly. I promise that I will be making music regularly. I promise myself that I will be doing research regularly. These are promises that I make to myself. These are promises that I intend to adhere to, and these are promises that I will show some result. I will show the fact. I will make these goals quantitative. Right now they're a little vague because they're sort of like up in the air. We'll make games, or how many games, like what constitutes a game, that sort of thing. I think what I'll do is, like, whenever you sort of have a goal, you should first have it, and then you should just sort of try to quantify it in some particular way, because otherwise it's really unclear as to whether or not you sort of achieved it in the first place. And that way you don't get that sense of satisfaction once you have actually achieved it. You're never actually sure as to whether or not you've achieved it. So when I have these 5 goals, in front of me. I'm going to read them every day, and I'm going to focus. Truth be told, I often worry about failure. I often worry about, well, what if I don't succeed? What if this YouTube channel doesn't fall off? What, like, doesn't sort of succeed, so to speak? And I worry about repeating myself. I worry about saying too much. I worry about the fact that, have I sort of retraced my steps? I worry about the fact that, have I been sort of prolonging the video needlessly? Have I... just the most inane things I worry about incessantly. And the thing I've realized is that none of that matters, right? At the end of the day, there's a chance. There's a chance. I'm a big fan of card games. I always have been ever since I was a kid. I love card games. I intend to make my own card game. That's probably one of the biggest reasons as to why I got into indie game development in general. And one of the card games I used to play when I was a kid was Yu-Gi-Oh! And I love this series, and I could gush about it. But really, I think there's a very wonderful song in the anime, in particular Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, and the song title is literally called "Take a Chance." And I was listening to it, and it sort of perfectly exemplifies what I think, really. And I don't know why it took me so long to realize this. Right now, I have a lot of exams coming up, and it's not an exaggeration to say that the trajectory of my life can fundamentally alter depending on how well I do in these exams. And the thing I realize is that there's a chance. There is a number out there where in which I'm able to pass every single one of the exams I have upcoming, and that is the thing that's keeping me going. The realization that I can pass. It's possible, right? If it's within the realm of possibility, then I can just make it more probable by just engaging in certain actions. So I'm gonna try. That's all I can do. And with that, I think I'll head off. And yeah, take care. This is Sandgazer logging off.